I was surprised that Clemson was at number 3 and Ohio State at number 4. But again, that's not alarming to me. This is the first rankings, and if you look at the history of this thing, there's always been a lot of movement after the first week. So I don't get too bent out of shape about things. I think there's some other teams, Indiana sitting behind, a 2-loss Oklahoma, a 2-loss Georgia sitting at number 9. There's just certain things that sort of make you think that's interesting, but nothing jumped off the screen at me like somebody got cheated.
Speed Demon, let me ask you this. How can BYU jump 10 spots in the next couple of weeks to make it into the first college football playoff rankings?
They got no shot. And I was not as bent out of shape as some of my colleagues on the BYU sitting at number 14. Could they be better than 14? Possibly. But I don't look at BYU and think, now there is a team that I strongly feel is a top 5 team. They're good. Don't get me wrong, but I think a lot of these teams are good, and a lot of these teams have an argument for being, a little higher than they are. So that's one that sitting at 14, it didn't scare me as much as it did some other guys.
Joey, what are your thoughts on the trendsetter that you have been able to become by creating the terminology, the bunch of Reese Davises as a rallying cry for Fighting Reese Davis is a rally cry for Northwestern, and can Northwestern actually make the CFP?
They can make the CFP, and I thought I always want to look and see when the first rankings come out. The only thing I want to see is how many teams actually have a shot to get there from where they are. And Northwestern sitting at number 8 really opens the door for them to have a shot to get there. Now, it's not going to be easy. Their next 3 games should be very winnable, besides the fact they got to go on the road. They got Michigan State on the road this week. They got Minnesota on the road the week after. And that's the game that would scare me a little bit if I'm Northwestern. And then the final game is Illinois. So they should be able to run that schedule. The hurdle is Ohio State and the Big Ten championship game. If they win that game, then they have as good a shot at anybody at getting in the playoffs. So I would look at the top 8 teams and say that those 8 could possibly get there. Cincinnati's going to need some help. They need some teams to lose ahead of them, but the stuff that they need is not impossible. They probably need Notre Dame to beat Clemson again. They would need Alabama to beat Florida in the SEC championship game. And so some of those things that they need are absolutely possible to happen. So I think the top 8 teams all have a shot to get there and a realistic shot.
Keyshawn J. Will and Zubin is presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So which team, Joey, outside of the top 4 has a chance to make it in the CFP? USC. Who do you think?
Key, I would say, honestly, speaking of USC, and I'm sure you've seen your team, I am a little disappointed in – I thought that they would be a lot more explosive offensively.
Yeah.
When you bring back guys like St. Brown and Bonds and Keaton Slovis at quarterback, 30 touchdowns last year, all the veterans you guys have, I thought for sure that you guys would come out on fire. Now you're 3-0, but it hasn't been a pretty 3-0, and that hurts your chances of getting there. I don't know that the Pac-12 right now has a legitimate shot at getting there with, it would have to be Oregon or USC. And so I don't know that there's a legitimate shot that either team gets there now just because you guys haven't it hasn't been pretty. You guys are going to need a lot of style points, and that really hasn't happened out there. The team that's interesting to me is Florida, though, because with Kyle Trask and the way they're playing offense right now, and their defense is it needs some help. But I would say the same thing about Alabama's defense. I'd say the same thing about Clemson's defense and Ohio State's defense. But the way Kyle Trask is playing, we might have a legitimate shot at seeing a SEC championship game where, it'll be 55 points to 60 points, but offensively, Florida can hang with Alabama. So the SEC championship game could be very interesting and could see a team like Florida knock off Alabama.
SEC bias once and live again. 3 teams from the SEC are in the top 6. But what conference, to you, most likely can get 2 teams into the playoffs other than the SEC?
I think the easiest path for 2 teams would be the ACC, simply because Notre Dame beating Clemson early in the year really sets them up. If they run the rest of their schedule and get to the ACC championship game and play a good game and lose to Clemson, with Notre Dame sitting at number 2 and Clemson sitting at number 3, I still think that keeps both teams in. And so the ACC getting 2 in would obviously eliminate a spot for, maybe a 2 teams out of the SEC or maybe even a Cincinnati or 2 teams out of the Big Ten. But I think it's very I would say that would be likely to happen if Notre Dame Clemson play and Clemson has all their players, Trevor Lawrence included. I think Clemson will be favored in that game. So it's more than likely to happen if Clemson wins that, and then the ACC would have the chance of getting 2 in.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.